I'm Neil Howe, and graduated in 1991. Yeah, middle school was pretty difficult, and socially, academically, and my mom was, especially my mom, my dad too, but my mom especially was very concerned, very worried about where I was going, what might happen to me. And in her words, she started praying about it. What do I do? How do I help my son? And this is a theme that keeps coming up as the mom, right? And the next day, she was watching, I believe it was the Charles Kuralt show in the 80s, and David Gow was on there. And she said, this is interesting, because everything that she heard him talking about mirrored and echoed what she was experiencing in her son. And we started making calls, and next thing I know, we came up for an interview and we were seeing the school. And that was in the spring of 1987. When I first arrived at Gow, we made the decision to come, and I remember initially wanting to come to the school because it felt secure. My old school experience was very chaotic and just all over the place, and with my attention deficit problems, it just wasn't working out at all. But Gow had order to it, and I could sense that. It was a little scary. The headmaster at the time sometimes was a little intimidating, and some of the teachers were too, but I liked the sense of order. There was a routine that was going on, and that appealed to me very much. It's not that I wanted to go away from home, but I wanted to also be a part of what I was experiencing. Yeah, so after my 4 years at Gow, I ended up going to college. I was accepted early, and I ended up in southeastern Ohio at a little school called Muskingum, and it reminded me of Gow, except much bigger. What I was really looking for was getting to know my teachers and having a good, productive relationship with people, because I didn't want to be able to hide or feel like I could get away from the academics and the discipline and what it meant to go to college. It was tough at first, college, but I remembered what I had learned here, applied it, and it ended up working out very well. I ended up graduating with pretty good grades. Once I had graduated, I wasn't sure what to do, but I know that I wanted to work. So I started applying everywhere that I could, and I eventually landed a job at a car dealership, exchanging cars and doing dealer runs. And I eventually got a job with AT&T in communications and sales, technical support, customer service, a lot of different things. The cell phones were brand new back then, so it was a big opportunity, but I didn't really like it all that much in the long run. I said, I want to do something in education. I really wanted to get back into things like history and things that I liked. And a local college that I applied to for a master's program, I got accepted to, and I was looking around on the internet and I saw the TTI program in the summer here that was done by Kathy Rose. I said, that'd be interesting to go and just take that class, because I think I could have earned some credits for that toward graduate school. So I contacted the school, I showed up, got reacquainted with people, took the course, and halfway through, Kathy Rose was asking me if I wanted to work at the school. And I was like, I don't know if I want to do that. I'm really not sure about that. And after a lot of thoughtful consideration about it, I ended up taking the job. So I was very flattered, and I'm grateful that I did. Yeah, there's a lot of technical reasons why it's different. Everything from our RL program to our routine, structured, and schedule. But it's really the people, and it's how we get to know each other. And it's how you get to really learn how to care about each other and how to do that appropriately. But it's also about holding each other accountable and how to be responsible about life. It goes beyond Gow. I remember just thinking, what I'm really taking away from the school, and this was years later, but what I'm really took away from the school was that life's going to be tough, and you had to learn something about that while you were here. So the school was very good at delivering a message of, we know you, we care about you, we know what your needs are, but here's the reality as well. You're going to have to make some responsible decisions, and you're going to have to work. And in many cases, you're going to have to work a lot harder than some of your friends might that you're leaving behind at your local school. That was true. That held true. I think my favorite teacher was Cass Ray, and was always willing to give me a second chance at just about any assignment, but not really a third chance. But he was always available, and he was extremely encouraging and yet tough at the same time. So many of the teachers here were like that. Another teacher who I didn't like at all, but helped me probably the most about anybody, he always held me to account, especially for the things that he saw that I wasn't doing right. But I had this teacher in so many things, like in class, had him at the table, in the dining hall. I had him in the dormitory, and then I had him for athletics, which is the only time we really got along. There were times I thought, I really just don't like this guy at all. And I'm almost thinking, I don't even want to come back to the school. But we ended up working out some things out. And it wasn't until years later I looked back and I thought, oh, now I get it. I get why he was holding me to account, because he saw things about me that needed to improve, where I was either being a jerk or disrespectful, and it helped me so much. And that's so much about what was marvelous about the Gow School, is the teachers had that kind of freedom and flexibility to hold students accountable, and I really needed that. Still need that. I still need that from my colleagues and so on when they see me doing things. They may not want to say that, may not want to talk that way. I hold my teachers in the highest regard who really held me to account. If there's any one thing that I can point to, and this isn't necessarily encouraging, in my view, it's the truth. If you want to come to the Gow School, you are going to find that people are totally ready to help you, but you have to be humble enough to be ready to be helped. And that means that you're going to have to give something up of yourself, whether it's some kind of pride. You got to have some humility. You have to be ready to say, I'm wrong and my old ways are not right. And you're going to be scared when that happens, but it will set you up for greater chances of success later on. Because once you get out into the world and into life, things are tough and you're going to have to make tough decisions about things, but you can learn that while you're at the school, and you can learn it where you can make mistakes and people are not going to just push you out the door. They're going to say, hey, you're here, I can help you, but you have to have that humility. So if you're willing to do that, Gow is going to be a great place for you. Yeah, but I'm still just as fallible as a lot of other teachers are. Sometimes I get really irritated with the way a student is acting, and I'm not reading the room why, but I do have, I think, a certain kind of empathy for what students are going through. And maybe it's just that kind of emotional awareness of what they're experiencing that I'm willing to always come back to the table, like what Mr. Ray did with me, and be willing to have a second chance to work things through. Some of the most important things I learned at Gow, I would have to say the number one is personal responsibility, and being able to respond to the challenges that are thrown at me. That gave me a greater sense of self-worth. It's different from self-advocacy, which is a term that's used a lot today, but the personal responsibility that I gained from not only being a student, but also continuing to work at Gow keeps me in line that way, that I have a mission and a reason for wanting to continue to be productive in life and not giving up. If something is really hard, you have every reason to keep taking one step at a time to solve that problem. We tend to want to look at the mountain and say, I can't do that, it's too big. And you're not looking at the area right in front of your feet and saying, I can do that. I can take one step at a time. And eventually I'm going to get there. And before you know it, you're at the top and you're looking back going, I did that. I did that. I was able to solve that Pythagorean theorem, or I was able to solve this particular algorithm, or whatever it is that you're working on. I think it's important to point out that you have everything that you need to potentially be successful at the school. You have the right kind of teachers, the right mentors. You're in the midst of other students who are similar to you, but at some point you have to take personal responsibility. You have to want it to work. And once you are responsible and you accomplish some small goals and you start to build, you will start to see that you can do it. You have a sense of self-worth, and then you start to get it. You see the green light. My experience at the Gow School really saved my life. I know that's a very big thing to say, but it's been such a big part of my life. And I feel that it's in my code, if you will. I just know how to do it. And the things that I learned here, partly because of what I chose to do, have translated into a pretty successful career for me at the school. So I'm very thankful for that. I'm glad that was there for me because I really needed it.